Welcome, everyone. This is the first of our ZeroNorth Voices series, where we sit down with the people who actually are running ship in transition and ask them how they did it. I'm joined by Mikkel Seidelin, Chief Commercial Officer at Teekay Tankers. Mikkel has spent over 20 years at Teekay across chartering and commercial, and Teekay was the first operator to take emissions verification across a whole fleet with us. We've got 30 minutes, so I'll keep my questions short and I'll let Mikkel do the talking. Mikkel, welcome.
Thank you. Thanks, Jovana.
To get things started, I know that Teekay runs a fully integrated shipping model. When you first look at implementing new digital tools, what was the actual problem you were set out to solve?
The first business challenge that we were trying to resolve was making sure that the fleet was going at the most optimal speed at any given time. Partly against what the fuel price was, but also the combination between the fuel price and the value of time, i.e. the freight level at the time. We had some incidents, or we picked up on some incidents that where that wasn't done all the way back in 2020, end of 2020, beginning of 21. And so that was really, this is a fairly simple, by the looks of it, it's a fairly simple challenge to resolve. But that was initial. It was that basic, really. That was what we were trying to do when we started working with ZeroNorth.
Right. So building on from there, you were also the first operator to complete emissions verification services across your fleet with ZeroNorth. Why lead with compliance reporting and not something that was perhaps more visible?
The compliance reporting we took on the whole emission movement going back decades almost, or in the fuel savings movement. We looked more on the dollar itself. We looked at the fuel consumption of each of the vessel and make sure we optimized make sure we didn't burn a ton of fuel we didn't have to burn, and that naturally led into the compliance and the emission side of things. And the approach was really much to make sure that we have to comply. We follow the law wherever we go. So that was not a option. But then, how much competitive advantage do you really have by over complying? And it seems, and even more so in the last 6 to 9 months, it's we have to comply with the regulations, but we don't over comply. There's not much reward for doing that at the way it looks right now. So what we found is we spend a lot of time on the emission verification, and with ZeroNorth and the digitalized data and the cleaner data, we found that the effort and the effective cost, if you like, to comply with regulations would actually go down by addressing that first. And there's multiple other benefits in having that clean and valid data as well. But that was really the reason, is to just comply accurately, quickly, and efficiently. And that was why we targeted that first, or as one of the first tasks.
Perfect. And a perfect segue onto my next question, I guess. And I was wondering what this particular automation could actually taken off of your team's plates, like day to day. So you started talking about benefits and outcomes. Anything measurable that you could share with the audience?
For the regulation part, the most direct impact has been this rush of end of the year to clean up emission data. If in the past we would collect data from news reports and what have you, both throughout the year across the fleet, and then, as I'm sure most other of our peers would do, you send your data to your verifier, and the verifier will come back and say these are all the errors, and then you will spend a lot of work hours, and you will spend a lot of time in the last 2 or 3 months of the year where you're busy with all kinds of other end of year kind of things to clean up all the data, and you do several rounds with the verifiers, and it's very labor intensive. And so that aspect of it hasn't been completely eliminated, to be honest, but it's very much diminished. And I think this year we should see a lot lower workload on that one. But what it also gives is with the cleaner data, you just have more confidence in the data that you have and in the decision makings you take. So you spend day to day, you spend less time debating on the source of your data, how clean it is, and how much can you trust it. And that leads to conversations, commercial conversations, definitely, that at a higher level. You start at a higher level to solve the real business problems instead of having to debate how much can you trust the actual data that you're dealing with.
And that's the dream, obviously, using automation to elevate humans. Going back to the actual rollout, what surprised you during the rollout, good or bad? You can pick.
I mean, the rollout has been 5 years and counting. This is an evolution. This is not a 3 month plan. I think that's very clear. So maybe that's what surprised us a little bit, because as I mentioned to begin with, the initial business case we were trying to solve was fairly simple. What we realized was that to solve for that simple but high value plan or contribution, it was very, very, very important. The data was clean. It was very important that the different inputs were integrated. So I think the complexity of the very, very simple output was probably what surprised us the most. So we ended up, similar to ZeroNorth, if I understood correctly, having to upstream the data input into the final calculation, because I suspect the final calculation with ZeroNorth probably hasn't changed that much over the years, but the input of the data has changed, definitely for us, and that surprised me. Not in a bad way or positive way, but just the fact that the data quality that we had on hand already was not better. Yeah, that's probably the main thing, and the fact again that maybe this is not to manage expectations. This is not a plug and play. It is getting more and more, I would say, but for us, when we started out, it definitely wasn't. But then, not to belabor it, but being part of the journey sometimes has value in that, as part of the change management you are doing with the rest of the team as you implement these new tools.
That's so well put. I mean, I've been a part of various journeys in technology that are involving automation and applied AI. And I can say that it's normally when you start actually putting some of these efforts in, you uncover all of the problems with foundations, which in some of the cases are, well, data itself. There is also a super high value in actually getting started and doing it very early, maybe even earlier than everyone else. So speaking of starting in starting well, if someone is watching this but has never moved past the dashboards and manually doing things, where would you tell them to start?
With the data. It's to trust the dashboards, to trust the output. It's important to trust the data. And one of the things that we spend a lot of time on and are still affecting is the vessel reporting. Make sure the data going in is as clean as possible. As I said before, it helps with admission, but it also helps with trust in the dashboards. I mean, there's, again, as I said, like you want to move forward, and you want to move forward on around digitalization, big data, AI, whatever it might be. You need to have good data, and you want to elevate the conversations with good data, the business decisions with good data. And if you don't, and so you want to, as much as possible, it'll never, it's shipping, you're never going to get 100%, but you want to, as much as possible, remove the doubt and the questioning of the data, which was very valid in the past, and it's to still be continued to be valid. I think people should still be make sure and question out as the data going in is how clean is it and to what level, but you don't want to get stuck in those weeds forever. And if you get that, then you're not going to have, if the dashboard indicates that you should do a hull clean or you should go at a low speed or whatever it might be, you're not going to start with the conversation on a very low practical level to say, well, the data is not clean, so how can we really trust it? Because then it's never going to lead to a business decision. So I think start with the data, make sure there's trust across the organization with that, and then the algorithms and the output will be much easier to implement. It's really leads to trust, right, of the whole system.
100%. And that is a flip side of technology and of all of these implementations, organizational readiness as well, and a trust. How did you bring your commercial and operations people with you on a journey rather than pushing the journey onto them?
I'm assuming that we didn't push it onto them. No, I think it was probably a little bit of both. Proof of concept is super important in these kind of things because you deal with people who are extremely competent in their field, and they have been for many years, and you're not replacing that know-how with anything else. You are enhancing it. So I think that's the key thing, is you're not this is not, definitely for us, has not been a headcount saver. It hasn't been a G&A saver, and that's absolutely fine. But it's definitely been a fuel saver. It's been a commercial decision-making accuracy enhancer. And so first of all, again, it's like, clear communication to the team. What are we trying to get out of this? And if the agenda is very clearly laid out, that this is a tool to do what you do already, but just doing it at a higher level, to do it much better, do it faster, not getting stuck in the weeds, then the right people, unfortunately for us, we have, that's what we have. They will embrace these things, and they will use them as actually doing the same job that still needs to be done. They just do it at a much higher level, and looking for opportunities to enhance it further. So I think that's the key. Of course, each individual picks these things up at different paces, and that's fine as well. And it's also healthy to have things being challenged. It's you don't want to have. I think if you don't get some pushback from the organization, that means it's probably not being used correctly. It's not being probed correctly by the team. You want to have some sort of feedback, so that you make sure that when it's being implemented, there's belief that this is actually the right model. But sometimes that feedback lasts for a couple of weeks, a month, or sometimes lasts for several years. But it's still an ongoing thing. But you, again, if you, I dare to venture out that if you roll in and you with a new system from day one and everybody starts using it, I would dare say that you're not getting maximum value from it, because people are actually curious about how to get the value out of it. They just follow the process, and I think in shipping that's always a mistake. So, yeah. So embrace also the feedback for sure, and then that way you will get the buy-in over time. But yeah, it's not a weekend retreat kind of thing. It'll take time.
Absolutely. And I do think we will be having more and more of those conversations where we need to take people on a journey, because the speed of change is just accelerating. So any learnings in this department, I think, is super valuable to everyone. That being said, if we look forward, how we can see that platform is also moving from dashboards to AI agents. They can even act as a virtual analyst, right? For you as a commercial leader, where would you trust an agent to act today?
I think it's in the big data space, to get a lot of different multivariables to speak to each other, where it's going to be hard, humanly almost impossible, to get all the data to give you one output that you can make a decision around. That's so again, the fuel collection, or the aggregation of all the information on a scale level, not just ship specific, but fleet specific, across segments and what have you. I mean, that's where I think we've seen benefit now, and I think that's also where we're going to continue to see benefit. I think that's probably the main thing to get that up and running. Again, it links back to good data, and that's the other thing as well. You can use AI also to clean up your data, again, validate that. That'll be an important thing as well, and just simple in connection with the rest of your commercial system suite as an operator. Building layers on layers much faster and much leaner. So it's really but yeah, right now, getting good data in, AI can help with that, getting the analysis output from that data. That's where AI also helps as well, and I think that's where they. But again, if you need to have that foundation to get the maximum value out of it.
Those are the key foundational use cases. This is exactly where everyone should start. What's on the other side of the spectrum? What are those maybe use cases or workflows where you would want a human firmly in the loop?
I mean, it's still definitely around the. I mean, we one is around the weather, our routing, and the safety aspect as well. You still need to have a human beings, because they're human beings on our ships. Our colleagues, of course, are taking the most risk here, and it's still in their view how they want to use the tool, and ultimately that will, of course, will not change for various and very good reasons. So just from a safety point of view, you still need to have a critical eye on it to make the final decision, and I don't see that's going to change anytime soon. It's also again, especially in the market conditions that we're in recent years, we're living. The data is great, and I'm a firm believer of using more of that. But we're also living in a time of multiple outlying events, where the data is to be questioned and challenged in different ways. And so you still need to have, for shipping now at least, you still need to have a firm quality check and a human eye on the final decision on it. That might change on some aspects of it, but again, on the safety side of it, for example, I don't see that anytime soon, because again, we're talking about real risk to real humans if we don't solve it that way. So but safety is probably the one that's going to be the main one.
Absolutely, and I couldn't agree more with that. I want to take you a little bit further away towards the big picture here. Again, you sit on the commercial side. So where do you expect AI in general to change how you charter, price, or position vessels over the next 2 years? So a bit of a big picture here.
Yeah. Again, I think it's going to create some transparency and visibility across. I mean, shipping in the past, going back, more than 5-10 years, has been very, to some outsiders, been quite opaque and difficult to get a sense of. I think with both the satellite data and AI and just larger data on shared platforms, that's going to create a lot more visibility, a lot more transparency from KYC compliance point of view as well. In terms of the pricing itself, the position of the vessel, I think, is fairly visible already. It's just you can see where most ships are. The ones you can't see, that's a different situation. But you can see more and more ships. So I think that's already here. The how you interact with customers as well, maybe that will be a little bit closer linked in, where you can, for time charters, for example, where the customers will pay for the fuel. Maybe one of the things we like to work on is trying to enhance the visibility of what the ship is actually burning, validated by a third party, so that there's less debate about what the ship is supposed to burn, what is she actually burning, and it's just full of transparency on that, because the customers are the ones who are paying for it. I think the way we're doing it for time charters right now is quite antiquated, and I think hopefully with better data AI, we can increase the trust of what the ship is supposed to do and cannot do. On the price, there's been many attempts over the years to try price, use data and online platforms to negotiate and price tanker freight. It's I would never say never, but there's so many blockers in that space in terms of operational variables that are hard to into an algorithm, because it's hard to get full visibility of all of them. There is strategic preferences from charters and customers that is also not visible in the public domain, if you like, and all those operational and tactical strategic variables, I think they're very hard to price, and so I don't foresee any change in that for the next couple of years, but I could be wrong. But on the visibility and the transparency between owners, customers, or charters, I think that's going to increase, and that's something we definitely embrace at Teekay.
Absolutely, and it's changing the whole industry for the better. Okay, the final one. So for someone in this audience who knows that they need to move, but they still do things manually and they don't know where to start, what is your single best piece of advice?
I mean, besides the data, which I think I mentioned too many times already, I think it's really still to focus on their business. Don't solve for AI for the sake of AI. Look at your business. What are the challenges you have, and then look to AI to help you, or data, or ZeroNorth to help you solve that business challenge. I think that's the main thing. I think there's a lot of hype, and rightly so, around AI. It will change a lot of things, but it should change how we're doing business. And most shipping companies are not AI companies or tech companies. They're transferring things around the world, and AI will help enhance or make that more efficient. I'm 100% confident of that, but be specific about the business challenge you're trying to solve, and also internally with the team. If there's a real business problem to solve, and then look for the solution for it. And there's more and more of those out there. But otherwise, I think one can get lost in trying to look at something incredibly smart on AI or tech. But do your business need it, and do your business need it right now? I think that's the key thing. I think that the biggest worry, also from talking to people in other industries, is that people are getting distracted by AI sometimes, and not really, and then looking at something very clever, but it doesn't actually solve a business problem for them, and then it's really just a distraction. And in this environment we're in right now, there's plenty of good products out there that will actually help your business. So, but if you put the business first, and again, we're seeing it every day. But the mindset has to stay on does this actually create value for you? And then do it from the bottom up with the data, or at least do it deliberately with the dashboards or the outputs, but then knowing that you have to go bottom up with the data. And also, once you do that, that's taking the long path, I would say, to clean up the data. Well, less so now than what it was, but once you are, and I think we're very close to that, once you have very, very solid data, everything else becomes so much easier. Anything you want to implement, both in terms of the team, but also in terms of the tech on top of it as well, because you don't have to go back and question it. But I think just look around the business. Where's the leakage, and what tools are out there? And I will almost guarantee that there will be tools out there to solve for any business problem you have right now, one way or the other.
That's such a strong message to finish with. I also strongly believe that the right way to go, and also competitively smart way to go, is basically to start with a deep expertise and understanding of your own business and use AI as an enhancer, right? So such a great message for the audience, and a good way to finish. Well, this was a brilliant practical version of the conversation that the whole industry must be having right now. Mikkel, thank you so much. Thank you for dropping by and sharing with us.
Thanks so much. Thanks, Jovana. Appreciate it.
Thank you.